Hello, and welcome back to the second installment of the Hunting Horn Theory series. Today, we will cover positioning, how you should be moving around and lining yourself up to maintain a favorable outcome. If you haven't watched the first video in the series, it covers what your initial thought process should be going into all of the rest of these videos, this one included. And with that out of the way, let's begin. For starters, I will give the disclaimer that the advice that I'm about to give is general. In any good game, positioning isn't something that's just static or solved, but it changes drastically depending on many real time factors. And I'll do my best to go over more applicable scenarios in this video, starting with the one thing that is always a constant your moves. As we know, Hunting Horn has huge lingering hitboxes, wide swings, high swings, fast swings, even a hilt stab. But how do we use these to our advantage in positioning? By using them to their full potential, of course. I'd like to think of every hunting horn swing as not just one attack, but three different ways to use said attack. You can connect early, or what I call the deep connect, since you have to be extremely close or at a specific angle to hit the monster as soon as possible. This is mainly used for backwards combos, which I'll go into more detail later in the video, and also attacking while not being directly in front of the monster. A mid-connect, which is the easiest and most common way to position yourself due to its reliability to link into other moves. And last but not least, the late connect, mainly used for hitting a certain spot on the monster at a certain angle. For example, the left swing's higher hitbox towards the end tends to snipe heads that rest higher up, or if the monster is flying. Even with all of this said, Horn effectively only has 6 moves at your disposal at any time, but you have at least 3 different ways to connect them. And this is the main reason that I believe Hunting Horn to have the most skill expression out of any weapon. You don't have many moves, but it's how you use said moves that separates one player from another and makes a significant difference. Hunting Horn's long, far, wide reaching swings can be used to your advantage, and positioning yourself to get the most out of them is where there are further skill expression differences to be made. We will go a bit more in depth on every move, but before that, it is important to know that your current positioning is based off what button you're trying to hit next. Since you're trying to play songs and hit monsters at the exact same time, in most cases, your next note will dictate how you need to position yourself relative to the monster. I'll say it again. Your next note will dictate how you need to position yourself. You should know exactly what you're trying to accomplish with your moves before you even throw them out, whether that be for a quick punish, to start a damage optimal combo, or just trying to get your song out as quick as possible. Another note is that I'll use the name of the move and the input for it interchangeably. When I do mention the input, I will be using the Nintendo button layout since it's the one I'm the most familiar with. However, I will have a button guide on the screen for different types of controllers so that you can follow along easily. With that out of the way, let's start with your X moves, or what I call the starters, since many songs begin with this note, including your movement speed up. This means that it'll more often than not be your first approach button, which inherently places it high on the importance list for playing around. The right swing is like your left swing, but it comes out slightly slower and at a lower angle. It also hits incredibly far behind you when it starts. This early connect is very generous and allows for backwards play, which I'll cover later. Just know that there aren't many follow-ups after this unless you're facing completely away from the monster, due to the fact that all of your good moves start on the right side of your hunter's body. In terms of the middle hitbox, it goes very well into your A and serves its purpose of hitting directly in front of you consistently, whereas the late connect of your left swing excels at hitting relatively low while allowing you to roll quickly after it connects since you're later in the animation. Hitting it later also sets you up for a backward slam nicely since it ends on the right side of your body, and the backward slam starts on the right side of your body as well. There are some awkward head hitboxes where the late hit does come more in handy than the left swing does, so keep that in mind when you use this move. The forward X drops down directly in front of you, hitting above you in the process, but it's slower overall than stopping right in front of the monster and hitting X, due to the fact that you have to do the pickup animation or roll after it's finished. Because of this, it's used a little bit less often, but it's far from useless even with that said. Like I said before, this move starts above you and slams right down in front of you, really only giving you 2 ways to use the move. However, this move gives you something that the other buttons don't, which is advancing hyper armor. Before hitting any button while you're in idle, you have no such armor. Wind, chip damage, and other teammates can all stop you before you're able to walk up to the monster and do a swing, where this button actually comes in handy. It closes the gap from far away with the hitbox, grants you hyper armor, and lets you start your combo without being interrupted. Just keep in mind that if you're going to use this to go into a group of teammates, you have to keep buffering swings in order to not get knocked over or flinch by them. This is equally as useful for wind pressure. If you know the monster is going to do a move that has wind and you're far enough away, you can close the gap while being immune to that instance of wind pressure, while once again being able to start your offense. But covering the more well-known aspect of this move is the vertical hitbox for hitting high heads, which this excels at. There's no back roll in older games, so being able to roll forward after this vertical move can make it marginally better than the backward slam, especially if this is the next note that you need to play or you need to move away quickly. Think of this one as the more defensive option of the two vertical moves at your disposal. If this is the last note that you need to play in your song, the kick-up recital is fast and moves you forward, which can set up for a backwards encore if spaced properly. Situational, but it's indispensable to the Hunting Horns kit. Now we'll move on to your A moves, or what I like to call the fast ones. Creative, I know. They're called that for a good reason, though. They're your fastest moves for tagging damage, and they're the easiest notes to get out by far. Because of this, a large part of your gameplay relies on this button to pick up quick punishes and maintain your personal safety. Now, I'll only mainly talk about the left swing in detail here and not the flourish. The flourish is great for getting out notes, but the opportunity cost of this move is that it takes another point of sharpness, does less damage, and is slower than just a normal left swing. Look at your songs and the notes that comprise them, not just as a means of buffing you or your allies, but potential damage. Much the same way that whiffing swings makes you lose damage as stated in my previous video, each note corresponds to a motion value 1-to-1, and how you play that song can be counted and added up to see how much damage the song is worth, depending on which way you played it. Let's take Attack Up L for instance, using the Monster Hunter generation motion values. X, XA, A, X. Assuming your weapon is already drawn, and this is the best case scenario, X is 30, XA slam is 15 and then 45, A is 30, and then the last X is 30 again. The song is worth 150 motion value if you play it this way. Now for the worst case scenario, X is 30, backward slam is 45, then you flourish the last two notes for 12 and 15 motion value respectively, which is only 102 total motion value. This obviously isn't accounting for all of the other factors that go into damage calculation, but it all starts with the motion values that you choose. This is obviously going to be magnified to a different length depending on the songs that you play, like in the case where the A precedes an XA note, like in this Negate Stamina song, making the XA note the second hit of your flourish for 15 motion as opposed to 60 total for a slam or 45 for the backward slam. You're losing about 45 to 30 motion value respectively. Great. Now, let's get back to positioning. The left swing is your bread and butter. It starts low and ends high. So let's work our way backwards from the end of the move to the beginning of the move. The late connect is perfect for hitting things high above you and tag damage and stun repeatedly. This is what makes it the star of the show in terms of moves that Hunting Horn has at its disposal. But of course, if something is on the same level as you and they're on your hunter's left side, this is not an ideal move to use. The middle part of the move does exactly what you'd expect, being able to link into your X moves easily while still being fast. And the deep connect at the beginning can be used to set up a backward slam and ultimately play backwards. Walking up to the monster to do a left swing is usually your safest option, and so you should be positioning yourself to hit it often. I would consider this to be your default option to choose if all the songs you need to play are already up or they were played recently. And because, again, this starts on the right side of you, it sets up perfectly into many other moves that you have. This is Hunting Horn's best move by far. The Flourish. Introduced in Monster Hunter 4, this move was mainly created so you could get out songs easier and faster at the cost of damage and sharpness as I stated before. You're able to add any note to the second attack of the move, essentially cheating the note out for free. As far as positioning goes, the first hit is entirely horizontal, and the second hit goes at a way sharper angle upwards. The first hit has a gigantic forgiving hitbox all around you, so that it's harder to miss, and it's also extremely fast. It's also a good time to bring up the fact that you can roll after the first hit, and the window to do so is quite generous. I limit my use of this move because I find the opportunity cost isn't worth it 99% of the time. However, the first hit is incredibly reliable, gets out an A note fast, and can be cancelled for your safety. The first hit's also able to maintain stun on a monster as opposed to your hilt stab. Sure, the motion value is 3 less than a hilt stab, but the first hit has a lot going for it in terms of versatility. As for the second hit, The hitbox is angled more aggressively and isn't nearly as forgiving. There aren't many cases where you can miss the first hit of the flourish but land the second hit. However, it does happen. And specifically GU, with the double note system, you don't have to input another note for the second hit. So, in doing that, it will double the original A note that you started with, effectively giving you two chances to do a double note instead of just one if you're dead set on reaping the benefits of the double note system. So, there's still use of the second hit, just not nearly as much as the first. This move encourages you to position yourself directly facing the monster with little to no variation, and the second hit just isn't good for head sniping because the stun and motion values are too low to justify using it over your left swing. In my experience, this move is even more situational than the forward X move. However, it can be used to weave in and out with quick damage and stun, all while maintaining safety. And now, moving on to the slams. These two moves have two drastically different hitboxes, and as such, you'll need to position yourself drastically different for each of them. I'll start with the forward slam, since it's the most damaging move you have from idle. I'll start with the forward slam, since it's also the most interesting move in Horn's kit. Why? You'll quickly be able to notice that if you play with other hunters, that this move's gigantic slam hitbox is a blessing and a curse. It's easy to connect, and it has a high motion value, but for your teammates, it's a huge middle finger to them. Even if you aren't trying to hit someone with it, the hitbox is so fucking huge that more often than not, it doesn't matter. They'll get hit anyway. I'll go over the positioning for both playing with and without hunters. When playing solo, this move hits right in front of you and is definitely spammable. If we look at the motion values, the first hit's 15, starts on the right side of your hunter, and that's followed by the slam being 45 motion value right in front of you. So it's entirely possible to position yourself so that only the second hit connects, and that's viable given its huge hitbox. You're also able to roll shortly after the slam comes out, further incentivizing connecting just the slam. And in order to pull this off, you just have to start the move early and let the monster's hurtbox come to you. In this way, the move becomes quite safe, and in terms of positioning, this move positions itself with its more than forgiving hitbox. As long as you're facing the monster and you're close enough to it, you will connect with it. When playing with others, it's strongly advised not to use this move at all, since it causes so much disruption, unless you know for a fact that not a damn soul will be hit by it. Luckily, Capcom was smart and made the backward slam do the same amount of motion as the forward slam, which is 45. So we'll be going over this move in detail, and boy does this move have a lot to go into. I said earlier that left swing was the Horn's best move, and it still is, but backward slam is even better than that once you're truly able to use it to its full potential. In terms of positioning alone, this move is extremely versatile. I'll first cover the basics of this move and why it's important to the hunting horn as a whole, starting with the hitbox like normal. But then I'll go over its offensive, defensive, recital, and encore applications. Again, there are three main hitboxes, starting with the very start of this move where the hitbox starts from behind you on the right side of your hunter once again. This is perfect for getting out a highly damaging punish almost instantly. The middle portion of the move has the hunter swing the horn upwards, entirely vertical, perfect for sniping heads and hitting flying enemies. And the last portion of the move has the horn slammed down behind you as you go to pick it back up. Most of your backwards movement comes from this last portion of the move as you go to pick it up. Moving on to the defensive applications, which there are plenty of, because this move starts from behind you, you can face away from the direction that you want to move, backward slam, and then end up a considerable distance away from where the move began. This allows you to fade away from the monster's attacks in any direction that you'd like while dealing damage. If you connect the move later on when the horn actually slams down on the ground, you'll be able to roll earlier after connecting it. This is especially useful to bait out moves that the monster does when you're right in front of them, only to roll out immediately after. You're able to control what portion of the move you want to punish with by either walking directly up to the monster and doing this move while facing it, or by performing a quick turnaround prior for going for the backward slam. Overall, you should be trying to pace around the monster and find slight openings to either start your offense or to go back in and fade back out. This only really covers the surface of what this move is truly capable of, but if there's one thing to remember about this move, it's the sheer versatility. I could make a whole video on this move alone, and we would still be here all day. But it's time to move on to the next stage. Now, playing backwards. I've alluded to it many times throughout the video, and I'd be remiss not to cover it. By far the most unique and somewhat unconventional way to use these moves is to do them while facing directly away from the monster and still being able to connect every single one of your swings. It takes a bit of setup because you have to position yourself correctly to do so, but there's also a good reason you'd want to do this. Your backwards encore is your single most damaging move at your disposal, and positioning yourself to connect all three hits where you want to, of course, is what you want to be doing. This move travels backwards, so doing it while facing the monster more often than not makes you miss a hit or two. There's also a second reason why you'd want to play backwards, which is your damage optimal combo, being backward slam followed by a left swing repeatedly. Of course, backward slam is the easiest way to set yourself up for success to play backwards. You can always start playing backwards with any move by using the early or deep connect as I mentioned earlier, but backward slam is your easiest way of doing so. I recommend getting decent at doing instant turnarounds, as it'll not only help you play backwards, but improve your positioning with hunting horn as a whole, opening up the full versatility of your swings. Practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect, and once you perfect returning the stick to neutral to do an idle swing whenever you want, and even more importantly, performing instant turnarounds for backward slamming and deep connects, horn becomes a different weapon entirely. It becomes the single most methodical weapon in the game. And last but not least, the final positioning tip I have talks about our teammates. Spacing around your teammates can be just as important as spacing around the monster, due to the fact that they can hit you and stop an otherwise easy punish. Your spacing to them depends on the weapon that they're using, and your priority level of how much you should be cognizant of their existence is also based on what weapon they're using. But for the sake of simplicity, I'll go over the three main categories of weapons that will make you space and play differently. This tier list assumes that the players that you're playing with are also somewhat cognizant of your existence, and they won't deliberately fuck you up. In the first category, we have weapons that don't mesh too well with how the horn wants to be positioned around the head, and they tend to take priority by either granting themselves super armor, doing many wide sweeping moves that are hard to weave your own hits in with, or by having a moveset that naturally knocks you up into the air or sends you flying. Longsword needs no introduction. They will be the ones that trip you out of your spacing and your combos the most. On top of that, they have super armor on everything and their attacks linger. Stay far, far away from them. And if they're truly unaware of your existence, a slam will keep them in check to remember that this is a multiplayer game actually. Switch axe is here due to the axe upswing sending you flying and the sword mode shenanigans. If they're in sword mode doing DPS, just don't be there. You can be behind them or around them, but just don't be inside of them. Same thing goes for dual blades. If you're inside of them or in front of them, good fucking luck. Hammer moves are quite selfish, but it doesn't mesh well with how Horn wants to do things. Both hammer level 3s, the level 2 upswing, the draw attack, and even the golf swing can put an end to anything you were trying to do. You are both blunt weapons, and you want to go for the same thing, the head. But unfortunately for you, hammer wins that exchange more often than you do. The second tier is comprised of weapons that you can weave in your own attacks, even while they're right next to you. You have to somewhat time your hits to avoid being tripped by theirs, and vice versa. This can create some interesting team combos, and will oftentimes be the people that you want to be playing around to maximize damage. Two hunting horns are the perfect amount for this reason. Any more causes some chaos and some drop songs. But as a horn player, if you run into another horn player, remember that your goals are exactly the same, and that means you'll do similar things at similar times. As long as you do that and maintain each other's tempo, you both won't interrupt each other's attacks due to your super armor. Charge Blade doesn't have lightning fast attacks, but they have enough to remind you that they 100% still exist, and you should be playing around them when possible, especially when they're in axe mode. That double axe sweep doesn't play any games. As for Gunlance, you wouldn't initially think that Gunlance could coexist with any other species in the game. However, their attacks are slow and telegraphed, and they only hit directly in front of them. As long as you aren't in front of them by any means necessary, y'all have the ability to coexist. Greatsword is also slow and telegraphed, but it has sweeps, and that little side slap will knock you over on your ass. Be wary of these attacks, as they can stop all the forward momentum that you've created, but other than that, you're good to go. The third tier is as follows. The bowguns and bows don't really harm you in the traditional way. They just take the monster aggro away from you, which can be extremely harmful in the long run since they are positioned farther away and you'll have to constantly chase the monster if they're being targeted often. In terms of how much they'll hit you, it's not often. Sword and Shield and Lance literally don't have any super armor on their attacks, and for this reason, you'll fuck them up more than they will to you, since you have the wide swings and you'll hit them out of everything. If you can help it, try not to. But if that Lance starts charging, especially from behind you, then this could easily move up to the top of the list. Otherwise, it's at dead last. That just about covers everything. Now, this is the point of the video where I admit that I'm terrible at writing scripts and I throw a bunch of random information at the end because I couldn't really find anywhere to put it in the main points of the video. Hilt stab isn't useless. It just isn't very useful, all things considered. There are points in time where you want to play a song as quickly as possible, and then it can come into play, but as an attack, you're always better off just pressing any other button at your disposal. If you're playing a Monster Hunter game with ledges, positioning around them can actually benefit you greatly, since you can play whatever note you want while airborne. Just keep in mind that doing a jumping attack leaves you pretty open, so just make sure you don't get punished before you take the leap. Eating for Feline Acrobat in Generations Ultimate or equivalent in other games will allow you to recover from being hit quicker from moves that would give you a hard knockdown. Spending any amount of time on the ground is time that your songs will be wasting away, and what this means in the long term is, because you spend less time on the ground, you'll have more time to play songs before they run out. Of course, not getting hit period is always ideal, but in the event that you do get hit, eating for Acrobat is almost mandatory and allowing yourself the freedom to quickly recover from the whole list of things that can give you a hard knockdown. And repositioning is just as important as positioning, which is why it's so good. As for general positioning tips, always remember that you move about as fast as running. Position as if your weapon is still on your back. Oh yeah, and before I forget, if you've been paying attention to some of the clips I've shown, it sometimes looks as if I'm missing the monster, even though I get a KO or a flinch or whatever. See, that's what I call ghost hits. And it happens when you're not the original poster of the quest. So you're going off the host monster, and there's a bunch of latency, and there's a bit of desync between you and the host. And look, I'm not going to go too much into detail in this video, but yes, ghost hits do exist, and yes, you can position yourself to take full advantage of this. I don't really know how else to end this video, so I'll just say that this project was actually really fun to make, and I want to thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next video.